Let us now try and create a new user. As a local administrator, you should have access to the Users module in the Apps menu. In the Users module, there are 4 pages: viewing users by organization unit, or just all, viewing user roles, and user groups. Let's now go into all users. I am going to add a new user, which I can do by using this button at the top. I can also filter and search for users. This is always smart to do. If you're unsure if a user is already in the system, I'm going to add Mohammed Olsen. So let me search, and there's no hit, so I can safely create this user. When creating a user, the email is very important. And there are some compulsory fields such as username, password, surname, first name. Email is not compulsory, but we should always add this, and I usually start with the email. The NRC email, is the starting point because this is a unique address, and the email is used for the user to reset their password. And we also generate the usernames from the email. The way we do this is by taking everything in front of the @ and capitalizing each part of the name. So Mohammed Olsen at nrc.no becomes Mohammed Olsen by using the first part and matching the first, and then capitalizing both of the first letters. Usually you can also use this email for the surname and the first name, as they are all related. Okay, let us create this user. First, I'll hide the sidebar menu to make things clearer. Let's start with the email address. Mohammed Olsen, nrc.no, and then we know that the username is Mohammed.Olsen with big capitalized first letters. First name and surname comes from this as well, and then we enter a password which satisfies the criteria. The user should anyway go in and change this when they first log in, so we don't know each other's passwords. The interface language can be selected. Here the standard will be English. The first one on the interface language gives the system generic menus such as apps, dashboard, pivot table, data visualizer. Changing this to any of these languages will give translations in that language, while the database language gives translations to the NRC specific things such as core competencies, education, or indicator names. Here we only have translations in French and in Spanish. So English, French, and Spanish, where English is the main and most complete language. After setting the user details, we get to the user roles. Here is listed all the available roles which can be assigned, and assigning you can do by double-clicking over to selected roles, and this is compulsory to have at least one role. All users should have the global basic user role always. So let's start with adding this. We'll leave the rest for a little, and let's go down to selecting data capture and maintenance org units and data output and analysis org units. So these are 2 different ways of selecting the user's location or org units. So the data capture and maintenance org unit, this gives where the user can enter data if it has data entry rights. And for those who do not have data entry rights, it shows this will be what shows you as your user organization, which is a check. When you're creating pivot tables, you can show only the user org. And for this person right now, then the whole of Iran will be the user org. That means if this user can enter data, it will be able to enter data for Iran, all its areas, and all of the offices inside Iran, such as Qom and Tehran, and all these. A different way of selecting these could be to deselect Iran and select directly these two. So let's do that now for this user to test, and then we have the data output and analysis org. This is usually at the top of the tree for all users, so that, and this decides what data the user has access to, which means that in the pivot table this user can see all the Iran data, while entering data the user will only be entered for these two locations. We'll see this in a moment. We usually always want to show more details, and we actually need to, because here are the user groups. And this shows all the global and local user groups which you have access to. It's a lot of global ones. But what we always need to do, we need to always put the user in the country user group. Because if we don't do that, then you as an administrator do not have the authorities to create this user. So this is the minimum, always add it to the country users group. And then, depending on what type of rights the user have, which kind of team they work in, or what kind of projects they'll be needing to do analysis on, we could add more groups. But let's just keep it simple for now and just add the Iran users. It's possible to restrict dimensions in data analysis. I recommend we don't use this, and I recommend we don't try to use it because it will, like if we do this, then this user will not be able to break down data by project and will not be able to see project data potentially. So let's just leave this as is now and add. Okay, I'm now logged in as Mohammed Olsen, and what can be seen here is everything that's shared with the user groups that he is in or that is public in this system. So we can see that this dashboard is probably shared with all the users in Iran. So it's the Iran CMG overview. And this one is the global direct beneficiaries. And we can see here it shows us information on Qom and Tehran, because this is where this user is placed. So in this table it would show data for the managed org units for this user. While if we press here, we can actually, since we have access to do analysis on the whole of Iran, we can update this and we can see starting from Iran, and then we can see the sub-areas from Iran. So that's the difference between those two locations. If we go here, we can see pivot table, data visualizer, data entry, browser cache cleaner, interpretation, messaging, and these data dictionaries. So let's go to data entry. And now we see Qom and Tehran. We don't see any data sets. So we can't enter any data. And if we go to pivot table, we can see global data elements. We can see local data elements if there are any, because they will be shared with all the Iran users, which is the only group I'm part of. We can see all these. We can see Iran from the top tree. We can see target actual, core competencies by data element. We can see displacement status, donor, household type, project sex. One of the things we can't see here are the core competency specific breakdowns, such as construction type, whether it's permanent or temporary shelters. Those dimensions are shared in the global core competency groups. So this is just a very basic user. It's quite simple. It's quite straightforward. It gives you enough information to do some basic reporting and analysis, but not to do the full details, and it doesn't give you the whole complexity, which might be an advantage sometimes.